Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
And thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and WFHR.com, and we welcome our friends from RCCA Media as they're here digitally recording this for later broadcast on your cable system or on demand at rccamedia.org. And the reason they're here, well, Lance Pliml is our guest this morning, the Wood County Board Chairman, and first off, I want to remind everybody we'll be joining forces with RCCA Media tonight. If you can't get to a TV or you don't have cable, we'll be carrying the simulcast of the mayoral candidates debate. And there are 3 candidates running for mayor of the city of Wisconsin Rapids, and there is a League of Women Voters candidates forum tonight, and we'll be carrying it live here on AM 1320. And I believe it's 6 or 6:30. 6:30, is it, Jesse? 6:30. Okay, that's what. I don't have my paper in front of me, but we'll have it on tonight, and then we'll join Marquette basketball in progress following the debate. But right now, it's time to visit with the chairman of the Wood County Board, Lance Pliml. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you, Kyle. Good to be here.
Yeah, we missed out last month. So, well, first off, we might as well get your reaction to the big local economic news of the day. Verso filing for bankruptcy protection. The owner says it plans to reorganize and eliminate $2.4 billion in debt, but it says right now it's not affecting employees. But of course, we all know what could happen. Your initial thoughts when you heard the news?
I typically never find out about this much before anybody else out there in the public. My initial reaction in regard to the article, at least, would be this. I'm glad to hear that there's no planned layoffs at this time. Generally speaking, though, those filings are not good news. You know, you'd rather hear that the industry is thriving, that we have record production and record sales. I hope that's the case. I hope that the restructuring of that debt allows them to continue operating, to not only have employment here and provide it, but to grow that employment. I know that we have some of the more modern producing machines in our area. I hope those would be the last, if they were going to make any changes, that they would, look at shutting down. So, based on the article, I hope that everything they said is true. Yet I'm always skeptical when I hear news like that. So, fingers crossed, and hope that elimination of that debt allows continued operation and long-term success.
But doesn't that also show that why we have to continue with the effort to diversify this area's economy, as we have been doing now for several years? We can't just rely on paper anymore.
You can't. I mean, the world's changing every day, and paper's a commodity. Mm-hmm. The question you just asked me is probably the best question of that bunch. Is, we have worked very hard in this area to diversify our economy, and we actually do have and have made some significant changes since the heyday of the paper mills, and we need to continue to do that. We need to make sure we don't turn away new business. We need to welcome them. We need to have a trained workforce. And one of the things that we've talked about before when we meet with some of the futurists in this state that talk about what will be the face of government, what will be the face of business, and how will things look in 30 years is a way to bring that workforce, to bring those young people to our area. And we're finding that lifestyle is more important than the actual employment that exists. What they found in these long-term studies is that these young professionals actually follow lifestyle, not companies. And where the lifestyle brings them, the companies will open and thrive. We've kind of had the reverse mentality or the different plan, over all the years where we looked at, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. And now we're looking at if we provide the lifestyle they want, those companies will locate to where those professionals are. So, we're working on those things every day. In government, the real easy thing to do is go out and fix the pothole that's in the road. That's simple. There's a hole, let's throw some asphalt in it, let's fix it. The difficult thing is looking at how is government going to be shaped? What's our economy going to look like? Where are we going in the next 30 years? I wish I had a crystal ball and had all the answers, but that's why, we need to continually try new ventures, to initiate new ideas, to, I hate to use that old phrase, think outside the box, but that's what it's going to take.
Your point is well made, because Mayor Verwink, in his monthly report, has made the same point, and he's a member of the millennial generation. He's basically said members of his generation are looking at lifestyle. They look at not just a job, but what are they going to be doing outside of work? What's the community like? What are the recreational opportunities? And we do have a lot to offer folks in this area.
A lot more than many areas. We have looked at people, and I'm talking in national surveys, where they've given up $20,000 to $30,000 of income a year to be where their outdoor activity exists. That need to own a home, that need to have a high income is not as important as those recreational opportunities. And we do have those here. We have a lot of those opportunities here, and we need to bank on those, and we need to grow those opportunities. So we continue to look at that as we move forward. The other part of that, from a government perspective, and that's tax structure.
Yeah.
We have, I think it's 700 companies have now located to Ireland. Major companies, and if I start naming them, I'll get them wrong, but, Pfizer and Intel and Facebook, and because they have a tax structure that's conducive to business growth. I'll get political here on you.
It's economics, too.
It is economics. I always question the fact, why do we have a corporate income tax at all? Until that money is distributed to the individual and taxed, as personal income, why are we penalizing those organizations that can grow jobs, that can use that capital to expand and keep them here on shore? 700 major corporations have located to Ireland, and you're going to continue to see that move when our tax rates far exceed that of the rest of the, civilized world.
Or they go north to Canada.
They're going to relocate, because your number one job as an officer in that corporation, as somebody who's running that, is to provide return to your shareholder. And you're going to maximize that. And you're going to operate where it's as efficient and as effective as possible. And in today's world, with the technology that we have, I don't need a brick and mortar building sitting in Wisconsin Rapids or Madison or New York City. I can be wherever it's most conducive to providing the best return for my stockholder.
Yep.
And until we realize in this country that, from my perspective, until it's taken as personal income, why not allow those corporations to retain those dollars, expand, build jobs, and stay here in America?
Good question. And like I said, you call it political. I call it economics 101. I mean, it's basically the bottom line, when anybody who runs a company is worried about.
Absolutely. When we look at here, when we look at every day, if I go out in the general public, and I was standing out on the street corner right now, and I said to every person out there, are your taxes too low? Generally, the answer is no. And I would agree with you. Nobody wants to give more dollars, more money to the government than is absolutely necessary to run those programs. Our job is to ascertain is what is the proper level of service to provide, what's a mandated service. Public safety is certainly at the top of that list. Transportation, communication infrastructure is probably part of that. And then where do we draw the line? What do we do? And like I said, the filling the pothole's easy. It's those long-term decisions and where we go and how we allocate the dollars we have that's much more important.
Let's talk about long-term. And recently, haven't had a chance to talk to you since the deal was closed, and that is the purchase of the River Block building. I want to talk a little bit about that with you. But some folks are going, okay, we got this building, but we don't own the land under it, and it's a 30-year lease, and then afterwards they're going to get it back and they're going to tear it down. Does this make any sense? and so I said I would ask that question to you, so I have done my duty.
Sure. Well, I'm a real estate guy.
Okay.
So,
I figured this would be a good one for you.
This is a really good question for me. The answer is, in some respects, it mirrors what a lease might do, but it's significantly different. It's a purchase of property with the revisionary clause. So it means we can do with that property what we want to do with that property in those 30 years. I'm going to change this up a little bit. If I could have built our courthouse in 1956,
okay,
the time it was built, at the cost of about 15 cents on a dollar, cost adjusted at the time, and at the end of 30 or 50 years, left that building and moved to a new facility, I would have done that in a heartbeat. The reason is I saved a tremendous amount of money. There's functional obsolescence that comes with any building. One of the problems we run into is nobody pictured the need for fiber. Nobody pictured the technological advancements we have. I cannot tell you today, although we try to look at this, we try to predict every day, what the face of government will be in 30 to 35 years. And there's a renewal option on that. But the fact of the matter is, the cost of the building we were looking to build was in the neighborhood of, pick your number, low end 20 to 25 million, high end 50 million. When I can go into a building for $2 million, have no escalator as if it were a rent or a lease type of situation, lock in that cost for 30 to 35 years. I would do that with every single building that I could. I wish I had that option everywhere we were at. So at the end of the day, we're going to save the taxpayers buckets of money.
Okay.
I don't know what the face of government will be in 30 or 35 years. Will we have more regionalization? Will we have more counties, less counties? Will we have city government? Will we have only regional opportunities? I know this is being looked at the state level. It's being looked at the federal level. I don't have that crystal ball, but I can tell you this. Anytime I have the opportunity to lock in property at about $1.62 a square foot and own that for 30 plus years and then walk away from what is probably functional obsolescence, that's a pretty nice scenario.
Okay. I'm glad you answered it. So then let's talk about the move into the building. How is that going? What's the strategy that's going to be used to get that thing up and running? What departments are going there, et cetera, et cetera?
This is kind of interesting you're asking this question because I was in that building 5 minutes before I walked over to this building as we start to ascertain what we're going to do. We know that, for instance, the Human Services Department in its entirety is going to move into that business instead of having satellite offices all over the place. We anticipate the Health Department will be in that building. And right now we're doing a study within the courthouse. We're additionally studying some of the needs that were identified a number of years ago. What are the most symbiotic relationships as far as departmental needs as to who should move into that building. Some departments talk to other departments or interact with them on a daily basis. It would be nice to have them side by side. There's enough square footage in that building to probably move everybody there if we really wanted to. The immediate needs identified in the courthouse were the courts and security. In some way, providing more security to the third floor of that courthouse in the entire operation up there. 2, to get the IT department and the dispatch center out of the basement of the courthouse. We have water issues down there. We have flooding issues down there. They needed to move somewhere. So I think initially we're looking at probably keeping all of the constitutional offices in the courthouse. Most likely moving the dispatch center and IT up to a higher floor within the courthouse to eliminate some of those flooding concerns and some of those water issues. And then moving those offices that are ancillary to county government, the human services, those are the non-constitutional offices into that building. With the 75,000 square feet we have there, though, we have plenty of room, and right now we're trying to figure out what is the best fit, on what floor should they go into in the new building. The total process will take probably a year to get done. I'm hoping that short of that, we can start moving some of those people over there. And then it'll let us offload some of the office space that we have had around the community in different places.
So this year yet, you think?
I think that there's a very good possibility within this year that we will have people in that office. The building is in great shape. It's a tremendous opportunity. I think it will also stimulate additional economic development downtown. We'll have additional employees that we're moving in from some of the outlying areas that will certainly patronize some of the other businesses downtown. So I think it's win-win. It provides for our needs at less than 1/10 of the cost that we identified. This wasn't something where we just said, the building's for sale, let's buy it. We did a space needs assessment. The whole process took about 2 years, identifying this additional square footage is absolutely needed. And then when we had the opportunity to buy it at 1/5 to 1/10, I shouldn't even say it, 1/20th, to 1/10 of the cost. It was an opportunity that we had to jump on and seize.
If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're getting our monthly visit with Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml. With regards to the building, you say it's in great shape. What about in terms of technology? Is it wired right for that? And then going back to the courthouse, as you rearrange things there, are you going to be looking at some remodeling costs there as well?
Absolutely. We don't want to do this twice.
Right.
We want to do it right once. And one of the things, this goes back to that paper industry question. When Consolidated Paper is operated here, state of the art, leading enamel paper
right.
producing company in the world. they didn't take any shortcuts. They did everything right, and it was state of the art from a technology standpoint. The capability to even enhance that exists right now. We just think it's a fantastic opportunity. That being said, I still think we'll probably add another $1 million to $2 million in remodel costs, but that's still 1/10 of the cost of doing what the other options provided us the opportunity to do.
Plus, with the any work you do at the river block or any remodeling at the courthouse, you're looking at a multiplier because contractors, you got to hire contractors and the like to do the work.
It can only help stimulate things, but the real, the driving force behind this wasn't to acquire more property. It wasn't to have more.
It's efficiency.
Buildings. It was efficiency, and and the things we identified were, the need in our courtrooms, and there's a very good chance we're going to add another judge of this county within the next year or so. That's a need that's been identified by the Department of Justice. We need expanded space for the district attorney's office. We need to provide security there. And then we had people that would run from downtown out to 12th Street, within our social service umbrella, that if we can do all that under one roof, will be much better delivery of service. So I think we can deliver service more effectively. I think we can do it more cost effectively from a taxpayer standpoint. And it allows us to have a campus that's somewhat contiguous. Everything's right downtown here. You can walk from the River Block building to the courthouse in most instances.
Your thoughts, and I'm going to ask you to put on that other hat that you wear representing counties as a whole in your position with the County Boards Association, or Counties Association. Your thoughts on the governor's State of the State message and what he's talking about in terms of reorganizing state government and the like. Your concerns, have you voiced any concerns to the governor as budgets are actually put together and we start talking about how we do things in Wisconsin?
Well, as an association, we have a seat at that table. And the take of the Wisconsin Counties Association has always been, we need to do what's best for the counties. And that means all the counties. We don't take sides. We don't pit counties against other counties. If it's got to be good for all of the counties. One of the things we look for is less state mandates, more local control, but at the same time, we realize the need to regionalize services if we can provide that service better. At some point, those regions become too large to actually have effective service delivery. In the governor's State of the State, he talked about, increased spending in education. Probably a good thing. But I think at every level, I know his cabinet members, I know his administrative team have looked at that service delivery that we talk about in the county. How do we provide that more effectively? There isn't a money tree out there. There's just not a way to go take more money out of the taxpayer's pocket. And we need to figure out ways to more effectively deliver services, and we really need to ascertain what services are at the core. There's some things that we provide in government that we probably shouldn't be doing. There's probably some things we should be doing. But I think that's that higher level 30,000-foot view that you have to take, and you have to constantly change that take. I had somebody say to me, well, we just did that 5 years ago. Why do we need to do it again? And I was at a seminar recently, and the gentleman there, one of the leading speakers in the country, said, if you don't revise that plan every year or two, you really don't have a plan anymore. So that's the thing that I think they're looking at the state. It's the thing that we try to look at the county every day. I said, there's the simple things. We fill the pothole, we fix the dock out at the lake, we rake the beach. But there's those larger problems we deal with, delivery of those services through our Human Services Department that might deal with those people who face, physical challenges. How do we make the world more accessible to them? How do we do that in a way that's cost effective? How do we provide veteran services? How do we do that in an effective manner? Make sure we take care of those people.
Your growing senior population.
Our growing senior population. Our demographics here spell disaster. And that's why we need to attract those younger workers. How do we attract a workforce for a growing economy? We talk about companies coming here. I'm worried about if they come here, how do we ever staff them? We've seen people leave the area rather than come to the area. So how do we become attractive? How do we attract those bodies rather than companies? and then hopefully the companies follow and we're able to staff those.
Budget-wise, how are we as we begin a new year and with looking forward to what will come out of the state in its next biennial budget? Are you, any concerns in that with all of these moves going about and everything else?
I do have concerns. We had a huge structural deficit going back 6, 7, 8 years ago,
right.
In the billions of dollars. And I think going forward we have a deficit that's probably in the hundreds of millions, to be real honest with everybody. We play a shell game that makes things look good at the end of the day.
That's what the WTA, the Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance,
is saying. And I actually met with some of their people yesterday morning, and I'll be meeting with them again next week. But this shell game occurs constantly, and I'm going to say something, and this will irritate people in politics generally, at least at the federal and state level. My take has been, and you've heard me say this before, and I will stand on it, when politician becomes a profession, you will never get decisions that are made solely on the basis of what's best for the taxpayer. Decisions are made based on, I need to be in office because it feeds my family. And I see decisions being made every day. There are things we could agree upon in the state that are before the state right now, let's say pending bills, that are a no-brainer, that should pass in a second. But if I vote across party lines, or if I agree with the other side, I'm in jeopardy of not being reelected. And every one of us out there, every single person listening to the show sees that every day.
That's something people have complained about here.
Complained about forever. But if my way to survive depends on that, that happens. So, in the past, when you look at, opportunities to run for the state legislature and some of those, people have asked me, why haven't you pursued that? I said, because the first thing I'd want to do when I get there is move back to a part-time state legislature. We have people that work within the bureaucracy that know those departments, they know what to do, they know how to do it. Policymakers should make policy. And when that policy is being made based on, I need to return to office, we have a problem. That's why I'm not a term limit proponent. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with somebody serving, as long as they're serving in the best interest of everybody out there. Where I have a problem is when we have a great issue right now is probably, there's a number of them out there, but, juvenile justice is one of them out there right now. I think that everybody on every side of this issue says 17-year-olds being returned to the juvenile justice system is a good thing. Probably bipartisan support on that. But we can't come up with the money to do it. Well, why can't we come up with the money to do it? Because we play a shell game with transportation dollars and other funding out there. We need to hold people's feet to the fire. We need to be able to make decisions based on what's best for the taxpayer. And my personal opinion is those decisions get muddied somewhat when I need party support to run, because I need the dollars to do that. I can't waver from that position. And I'm a fiscal conservative. I think most people know where I stand. But that's an issue we need to deal with.
I've often wondered what our political system would be like if it was done like like we do locally here. If people ran independently without party designation, and you had to run and say, "Hi, folks, my name is this, and if you elect me to serve for these next 2 years, I'm going to try my best to do this," instead of
Carl,
all this garbage.
I can only use myself for an example. I love to serve. I appreciate the fact that I have been supported in that endeavor. But at the end of the day, I try to do what's best for the taxpayer every day, because if I'm not elected, it doesn't change my lifestyle. It's you make a living somewhere else, something else is your profession. You come and you make policy. But I can see, at the federal level, if you're making $170,000 a year, or at the state level, there are certain things that need to happen to ensure that you stay in office. Now, if you're not in office, you don't get to play the game. If you don't get to play the game, you don't get to make, decision-making process. But if you look at the states with a part-time legislature, they tend to be the most effective states that we have out there. The ones driving the most economic development, some of the most successful from a financial standpoint. We've made huge, under this current administration, we've made huge improvements economically. But we're still, based on the Taxpayers Alliance statistics, 38th or 39th in most categories from, being a tax-heavy, a tax burden. encumbered place to live.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time.
We can't be. I'm just starting.
I know, you just started. I was going to let you vent for a few more minutes, but unfortunately, we're out of time. As always, I appreciate our conversations, and I look forward to our next one.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay, that's Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml wrapping up part one of today's edition of the Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and WFHR.com, and we welcome our friends at rccamedia.org.